You're finally here. You finally arrived. You've at last found the one place which holds the answers to the questions of the ages. You're excited. Your heart palpitates. Is it real? Can it be true? You're understandably hesitant, yet determinedly hopeful. That is good. Your faith in such matters will be rewarded. You'll not find pat and cliched answers here. No! Here is a place of clarity, of definition, of explanation, of truth. Here combines science and religion, removes tradition and replaces it with fact. Here the universe is holographic, yet tangible, ethereal, yet substantive. Here is a place where time is understood as atemporal. Here there is harmony amidst chaos. Here is where the darkened glass is finally cleared. Here is where you'll find the answers to all the unanswered questions which stretch across the cosmos.
And you are across the cosmos for the next hour. I am Chase Rockwell, and I am your host. I am joined in studio once again by my co-hosts,
David Cameron,
Mark Wilson,
and Lou Rogers.
We're going to pick up where we left off last week, discussing the IRS, whether or not it's a agency that is run responsibly or has become the arm of dictatorial, overreaching, grubby politicians. Is it just a hammer that they can use against their foes, or it is a legitimate collections agency in order to bring revenue, desperately needed revenue, so that the machine of the United States government can continue to run? What should we do with the IRS? What function should it serve for its citizens? After all is said and done, the United States government is still a creation for the people, created by the people, it's of the people. We as citizens are not servants to an elite group that sits at the very top, but under later administrations, this is exactly what it has become. I am, as you're aware, no fan of the present administration. I believe that Barack Obama has run his administration as one would run a monarchy. Or worse, a malevolent dictatorship. Now, I know that a lot of people believe that I'm being overwrought, that I am exaggerating, but when one has studied the Constitution, as Barack Obama claims to have done, his actions are in no way justified by that document. His record over the last 6 years and what he has used the IRS to do to his ideological and political foes is unconscionable. But politics is a strange animal, and it creates stranger bedfellows. So let us pick up on this most interesting discussion with respect to the IRS. And I turn to my co-host Mark Wilson, who's picking up where he left off on his point.
You know, that you're talking about Weyerhaeuser or Norpac or like the long gone Reynolds Aluminum, all these different manufacturing plants. Everybody can reach into their pocket right now or onto their table and grab a cell phone. Everyone in America, every family has a cell phone, even the most
because
poor.
of Obama phone lady.
Well, even the most poor have cell
Keep
phones.
Obama in president! Keep Obama in president!
Well, because they think
does that
it's
mean?
a necessary
No idea.
staple for life. And most people have smartphones that can get on the internet with them. Now, we all want that. We all think we need one. Now, how many millions of phones do you think exist in the United States? How many millions?
Probably
I
two
would
per
say
person.
there's, 360 some odd million people, I would say.
Some people have two. Some
Probably at least that many phones because of the double up.
Okay. Now, do you realize that not even one cell phone has been made in America for years? Not one.
Yes, I'm aware of
So we look at the IRS and we make our complaints. We register our complaints, okay, and we say they're collecting too much or this can be different. Do you have any idea how much revenue we've lost from the cell phones?
But Mark, my problem is this.
That went into the Chinese
My
Chinese
problem
economy.
is this.
Who drove them there? So who drove
The
them
unions
out?
drove them
The
there.
unions drove them, but also governmental policies that made offshoring their businesses preferable. Okay, you can't keep killing business and expect them to stay around. Why would a business want to pay an exorbitant amount of taxes to make up for all the freebies they've been giving away. And it's just, we have got greedy, small-minded, just lunatic politicians on both sides of the party.
Now let's step aside from the IRS for a minute, because we're saying things about them, and I swear to you, they're doing the best they can. Now,
I take heavy issue with you on that. Extreme issue.
If you were to open up a corporation, you had to prove that your corporation would benefit the populace in which it resided. You had to show that you were going to help the people in your area as opposed to hurting the people and hurting the economy. Well, that's long gone.
It's long gone.
Nowadays, people open up, like, for instance, the guy that took over, was it Reynolds Aluminum, I think, that he bought it, and voila, he realized he can fire the entire crew.
He didn't realize it. He knew it before he
He
bought
could
it.
fire the entire crew. So all those
Michael Lynch.
hundreds of jobs.
He bought it to disassemble
and
it.
manufacturing is gone.
Sell off
He sells it off.
pieces and parts.
And you know where he makes the money?
Well, for the first year, he sold electricity back to the grid in California.
Yes. They give him electricity at a certain price because he's supposed to be manufacturing. So they give him a good deal. What's he do? He turns around and sells it to California at a markup and realizes, hey, I don't have to pay one dime to anybody. I can shut down my plant and make all this free money. And then I can sell off all the equipment and then sell off the land.
But why do you need to wreck this company? Because it's wreckable, all right?
If I recall correctly, he bought the company for X number of dollars, sold electricity back to the grid for a year, doubled his money, and just let the rest of it go. Because it didn't matter. He bought it to do exactly what he did with it.
What did it do to our town?
Well, it hurt the town, obviously.
It hurt the town. And that's what's happening all over the United States of America.
I'm well aware of that.
But, you know, some towns make this a problem. Look at Seattle lost Boeing, one of their major employers. Boeing moves their headquarters from Seattle to Chicago.
Over the tax issue.
Because Seattle's tax and Washington State's tax is so liberal and so burdensome to the business. That
Who was wearing the stupid shirt when that happened?
Mark, Seattle just passed a $15 minimum wage. Okay, so
who was wearing the stupid shirt?
Small businesses are laying off their workers because they can't
all of
afford
King
it.
County, all of
so the
Pierce
unemployment
County
rate in Seattle has gone up, not down, up.
I'm saying, again, who's wearing the stupid shirt?
Progressive liberalism.
Well, forget that. That's a term. Who
no, it's an ideology.
Who would lose Boeing?
The progressive liberalism.
The governor, the city of Seattle, the city of
Mark, if you've got three people in the room,
here's the problem with that.
One makes $1, one makes $100, one makes $100 million.
Exactly. They said, we will do this if you don't stop taxing us.
You're going to go after the guy with $100 million because he's at the deepest pockets, and you'll let the guy that makes $100 and the guy that makes $1 off the hook. Because, well, this guy's got so much money, he's not going to miss it. And that's their mindset, because these are people who don't know what they're doing. They don't understand how a market economy works. And so you got all these people crying, well, this business is getting tax breaks. Fine, let's do away with the tax breaks. Let's go to a usage tax. Everybody pays the same. You don't.
They
you don't
destroyed the future of many different families. Thousands upon thousands.
Well,
upon
this
thousands.
has been going on.
It doesn't matter
for
because
some time
they don't
now.
destroy them. They become Obama phone lady. They become the guy that's got 5 kids with 4 different women, who doesn't support any of them.
Right. You know, and
They become, in George Orwell's novel, the proletariat.
You know, the thing that blew my mind when I was around, I've got family there in Seattle, the thing that blew my mind was Boeing constantly laid out the figures and told Seattle, if you do this, it will cause us to be able to afford to move a large percentage. Not only the headquarters, they also moved several other parts of their factories away from Seattle. So, but they laid it out to Seattle, very well for them to understand. If they had any brains at all, they would have seen that what they were doing was setting Boeing up to leave.
well, yeah, they
Boeing,
continued.
Boeing told them, you're going to pay us to leave because of the amount of money we will save. It's not even going to cost us. We will leave on the difference of the
Exactly.
tax.
So, I'll admit to you, I've been vexed more than once over especially local municipalities and or state governments that do this sort of thing, because I don't understand where their head is at. Honest to God, I don't understand why you would drive business out of your state away from your people, or just try to fleece one of your largest earners.
It's just like with the union. Greed enters in to certain people.
It's grasshopper and ant mindset.
Well, what was happening with especially Boeing was the Washington State B&O tax, where they were literally paying tax on what they were going to have in inventory in the future.
And that's insane. That's insane.
It wasn't what you have in inventory now. It's what are you going to have in inventory in a year from now? We're going to charge you tax on that.
It's going back to the trough.
And this is what happens in this state alone.
I think that the IRS the structure should be changed. I think the IRS should be out of the hands of the president altogether. I don't think it should be a cabinet-level position at all. I think, if anything, it should fall under the legislative or maybe even the judiciary.
There's a history
but I
of
don't think that
not
would
only
fly.
the president using it, but congressmen going to the IRS heads and saying, I want you to look into this person, and they do it.
We get a lot of bang for our buck in our country. Tremendous. Like freedoms and
that's
protections.
Not a question.
And roads and services that are unbelievable. So I think...
But could it be better? When I mean
damn
better...
straight it could be better.
When I mean better, here's what I'm concerned about, is the debt. Could it be... Could we have what we have and not have the debt?
He's killing me.
The problem is not the IRS. Again, we're trying to, you use a microscope on what we can do to improve that system. Let's step aside from the system. The system exists, and it can be tinkered with, but it's not going to go away. What can be improved drastically is when the money's collected, where does it go and why? So what would be wise is, since taxpayers are paying the money, is there should be a statement that's made public so we know how much money is collected and where it's going.
There supposedly already is.
Well, that would help to curb a lot of the problems. Who's asking for what money and where are they distributing that wealth?
Well, that's all
because
part
right
of,
now
that's the general
that's
accounting.
all part of the budget.
It's like people. I've been
you
told
can get a copy of the U.S. budget.
The problem is when a president doesn't pass a budget, or Congress doesn't pass a budget, or Senate budget. Harry Reid, in the 4 years he was there during Obama's first term, would not pass a budget.
Never.
Always got it shot down. So they kept existing off of what's the term? I don't remember the term. But basically, they were just kind of running from day to day. There was no budget.
Well, actually, then what happens is they get down to this deadline where they're running out of money, and what do? So why have a budget when they can come to a deadline?
Well, that's what
they were doing.
Ran for 4 years.
But here's the great part about not having a budget is that you're also not hemmed in. You're not accountable to anything.
Right.
Well, because they're not accountable because they
trail.
say, well, how much do we need to make it for the next 3 months or 6 months?
So again,
whatever.
it's not this branch of government who collects the money. The problem, the true problem, is how the money is used once collected and what's added to that money in inflationary money. What is really funny money out there?
Okay, it's all funny money.
Well, we're collecting X.
Because our manufacturing base has fallen to the floor. We've got more than 50%, in my opinion, of people on the dole who are not contributing anything and not paying taxes.
Right. Every year we get a president in office who looks at the poor communities and says, I'm going to help you out. And I'm going to get you jobs. Well,
the president doesn't create jobs.
I know. The problem is I watch the decades pass, and I don't see the jobs being created.
It doesn't change.
Because a job is only created when there's a need to be – there's a need.
No. Ronald Reagan came into office after Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter drove us right into the ditch. Absolutely into the ditch. That was the whole malaise, whole area. He didn't know what the hell he was doing.
Come on, let's face it. We
academic.
We started out with the first time we ever had to have the misery index because he screwed the economy up so bad.
So Ronald Reagan comes into office. Okay, he promises he's going to fix things. He's got this plan. By 1982, they're bitching at him because, well, where are the jobs and everything? It took a little bit of time to undo the damage that had been done. 1982 up to 1996,
I believe
largest expansion of growth in the United States probably ever, even including post-World War II. Okay, everything that he implemented, and what did he implement? He cut taxes.
The first thing he did was get rid of the 70 percentile bracket.
He put a limit on federal unions. one of the first acts that he ever did was he fired the air traffic controllers. And everybody said, you can't do that. He said, either they go to work and abide by their contract or they're fired. And they said, you won't do it. You wouldn't, because if they'd have done that to Carter, Carter would have buckled. And Reagan fired them.
Deservingly
These
so.
were people who were fired. Now, a lot of them came back, but that union was essentially destroyed. Mm-hmm. We have since backpedaled from that. Reagan had a different ideology, he had a different way of looking at it, and we all benefited. We look back at the 80s now and the 90s as this time of just unparalleled growth. And look at where we are now. Clinton benefited the most from that because it all culminated with the dot-com boom, which gave him a budget surplus. Now we are $18 trillion in debt.
Right.
With the deficit every year.
Well, it's
We don't cultivate business here.
We add to that debt every year.
And then we put it on the back of the IRS and the collections agency to squeeze blood from a stone.
Right. So again, it's if people can understand this, it's not. It's about the IRS today, but it's not that they're a bad office or that they're.
They are a bad office.
No, it's
okay,
not.
The people there are some good people that work for the IRS.
Definitely.
But the face of the IRS has been draconian. I have dealt with these people myself. They are merciless. And it's because I realize they've got a quota to fill.
They have to.
And they have to do their job, okay?
Right.
It's not a job that I could do. I also couldn't be an abortionist. I couldn't be an executioner. There's a lot of jobs that I
It's just
couldn't
like a
do
cop.
simply on a moral basis.
It's like a cop who has
and
to
being
write
an IRS
X
agent
amount
is
of-
one of them.
X amount of tickets per day, and he has to, or he loses his job. You're put in that
Every
position.
police department would deny that claim right now. Every one.
every single one.
And
But
you
it
know
is a
what?
good-
If it's ever found out that there are quotas, who's ever running that police department should be immediately fired. Immediately fired.
Well, that's that's a whole other issue, but it is a good parallel. The IRS is a police department, and right now it is a police department that is being controlled by a small town mayor, saying,
It's being controlled by a complete flat-out friggin'
Let me finish my scenario.
communist-
It's like if we were in Chicago in 1930s and the mayor wanted your apartment,
that'd
the
been-
police would go there and remove you. Not by any decree, just arrest you and remove you, kick you out. We're the police. We can do what the hell we want. And that is what the IRS is today. We are the police. We can do what we want. If you don't like it, we'll get you.
Our
And when
nation's so
let
big.
me finish this.
Lerner.
When congressmen have stood up to the IRS and said, we need an investigation into your practices, what happens to them? They automatically become under investigation by the IRS for tax fraud.
Lerner, first off, she pled the Fifth Amendment in Congress when she was summoned before Congress. Under oath, she's pled the Fifth. I'm not going to tell you a damn thing. And then she started auditing people. Now,
Every
you
one
can
of them
say
that
that
was
Barack
auditing her.
Obama ordered these audits, or you can say that Lois Lerner, acting in her capacity as the director of the IRS, did this herself. One thing was for sure. The IRS was used for malevolent purposes against the citizens of the United States. That should have never happened. The woman should be in jail today, and whoever ordered her to do such acts, which are blatantly unconstitutional, should also be in jail today. But because our populace is mostly like Obama phone lady, we don't know that. It's
We are the modern robe, and as long as we can keep the crowd entertained in the gladiator pits, they'll let us do anything. And that is the mentality of Congress today.
Here's
Well,
Lyndon Baines
As long as they
Johnson.
got their cookies and milk.
Here's Lyndon Baines Johnson quote back before the passage of what later became known as the Great Society. These Negroes, they're getting pretty uppity these days. And that's a problem for us since they've got something now that they never had before, which was the passage of the recent Civil Rights Amendment. The political pull to back up their uppityness. Now we've got to do something about this. We've got to give them a little something, just enough to quiet them down, but not enough for it to make a difference. He says, and then I'll have those blankety blanks ends voting Democrat for the next 200 years. So Lyndon Johnson was savvy enough to understand exactly what he was doing.
But it's evil.
He patterned himself after FDR. He wanted to surpass FDR. So whereas FDR gave us the New Deal, Johnson gave us the Great Society. It's just decimated our country. It's decimated the inner cities. It's decimated the black population, and it has given the muscle to agencies like the IRS because you've got to feed the machine. So instead of middleweight Rocco, now you've got 500 heavyweight Roccos coming down on you, just crushing you. And that's not the way we started this experiment out. We were supposed to be past dictatorships, and now we have slipped so far into a dictatorship with this present occupant of the White House. I don't know if we can get out of it.
I question whether it's going to be a possibility of what's going to come next.
I like a lot of what Rand Paul says. I don't think he's got a ghost of a chance. Ted Cruz came out and was a lot more strident. He said just abolish the IRS. But you're right, that doesn't solve the problem.
Not at all.
As long as there is lunatics running everything, the IRS is just a tool, and they'll switch tools.
Yeah, it's a tool that obviously needs work because it's so massive.
Well,
and
that's why the whole thing needs to be changed. I think a usage tax would be
there's no
a good step in that direction.
Way to do it.
Well,
and there's a lot of wonderful people working for the IRS.
If you've
there
got,
really is.
If you've got a little skin cancer, okay, and you take care of it when it's a little skin cancer, it's going to the doctor, he numbs it, cuts it out, puts a bandage over it, you're done. Even if it's a squamous cell carcinoma, okay? But if you let that thing go and it starts taking, into your body, you may come out missing an arm or a leg or worse because you didn't nip it in the bud.
There's a lot
and that's
of
what we've
people.
done with this present tax structure. So now we've got these little cottage industries surrounding it, and it's like an old oak tree with a bunch of mushrooms growing around the base. The oak tree is eventually going to die and fall over, and the mushrooms are going to get taken out anyway. I got a cherry tree in the backyard just like that.
And that's what I've heard. I've heard it said that the United States has to fall. Or if you go back to your other analogy with the cancer, then to make the United States is going to have to die to build something different.
We can still do
That's
the
what
operation
some people
now
believe.
and fix it. But it means that if you've made your living being an H&R Block person, for example, you might need to reinvent yourself. And how many of us have to do that?
Going back to your analogy, then arms and legs are going to get cut off.
Well, that's my point.
I've had to do that.
We keep going back saying, well, the IRS has a lot of good people working for it. Without a doubt, it has a lot of good people working for it. But just because they work for it doesn't mean we need to keep that establishment running.
That's the too big.
We had a lot of good people working at the Reynolds Alcoa plant. They had to lose their jobs. We had a lot of good people working in a plant called Longbill. They lost their jobs.
Well, we have to find a way to collect taxes from people.
We do.
all share the burden because we all share in the resources.
But and a usage tax would fill that bill.
Right now, the system is so
it would
flawed.
give us the revenue that we need and then some. And if those tax burdens are lifted, business and manufacturing will start coming back to this country. Because let me tell you something: it's a lot easier for a local company to do business here than in China. But they do it in China because they don't have the confiscatory tax rate there that they've got here. Okay, they don't have the unions bugging them there that they've got here.
Nor environmental controls.
Or the environmental aspects of it.
That's huge.
So there's a lot of things we need to clean up if we're going to survive as a country. Because what's going to happen is we will eventually fall, and then it will become...
The U.S. used to be number one in steel in the world. They've since been surpassed by China because China can produce it cheaper because there's absolutely no environmental protection.
And I'm not going for that either. There is a balance that we can reach which would make everyone happy. And for some reason, there's a pendulum swing. No, I'm not talking about the crazies.
Okay.
The crazies will always, just like Christ said, the poor will always be with you. The crazies will always be with you.
Well,
there's nothing you can do to get rid of them. That's just part of the landscape. Embrace the crazies, put them in a museum or a zoo, and go and visit them every once in a while. Throw them peanuts.
Yeah, but the problem is...
But don't entertain anything that they actually say.
Look at the state of California. They've been entertaining the
Holy
crazies
hell.
for a long time. Now they're in this massive drought. They're complaining about it. Well, if you do some research, you find for the last 20 years, every watershed project they tried to build, the crazies stopped them because of the environmental impact.
And they always divert the water that they do need to where they want to go.
Right. And now 70% of the rainfall that lands in California goes out to the Pacific Ocean.
So, yeah,
but they want to build an aqueduct up to the Columbia River so that way they can get that water.
And you know what? The crazies will let them do it.
Yeah.
They will. They'll let them do it. So when you're run by lunatics, this is what's going to happen. So anyway, I suppose we should wrap this up. I don't know that we actually succeeded in doing anything except venting.
We talked a little bit about it.
But, in celebration of Tax Day, which by the time this airs is just a few days off, and everybody's got to write their checks who hasn't filed yet, and that money's all going to pay for another Barack Obama vacation. Understand that in fiscal year 2014, I believe they spent $10 million in vacations.
I believe more than that, but
it may have been.
I think their trip to Hawaii alone was around $7.
When you're...
How much money does he make a year?
About 450, 60, something like that.
How could he afford that much in vacation then?
because that's what it costs to
we've been
move
talking
him.
about.
He gets it paid for by the government.
Well, how could your vacation be more than your salary?
The plane has to be fueled. Okay.
The Secret Service have to go.
Secret Service detail has to be paid.
Yeah.
Hotels have to be booked. Transportation and food costs. All this crap.
He's not
is
an
bundled
average
into it.
citizen.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's got to be protected.
So, wherever they
carries
decide
a
to
heavy
go.
load.
See, Ronald Reagan used to go to Rancho de Cilio in California. That was his little ranch thing, and they set it up. They built a little shack there for the Secret Service to live in, and they had a little press area they built. And comparatively speaking, it cost very little money. But Reagan liked to go to his ranch. He liked to go there on his time off.
No, wait a minute.
And clear out brush and that sort of thing.
Reagan also loved the game of golf. And he played it He played it absolutely 0 times under his presidency because he felt he had a job to do that was more important than doing the things he enjoyed.
No, and that was Bush too. I don't remember that was Reagan, but I know that Bush did the same thing. Bush played golf like 6 times the time he was in the White House. But my point is this: Clintons and the Obamas have taken exorbitant vacations. Clintons always used to be in Martha's Vineyard, constantly going to Martha's Vineyard.
Right.
Obamas have just been all over the friggin' planet. And they take these vacations, and it costs tons and tons and tons of money. And, we're talking about the IRS. Well, the IRS goes and leans on this little guy over here. He's just trying to do his business so that he can pay what money he doesn't have to the federal coffers so that they can turn around and give it to Barack Obama so that he and his wife can take different planes across the country into California because she doesn't want to disrupt her schedule. So we'll fly 2 planes out across the country. So 2 teams, flight crews, fuel, Secret Service detail, the whole bit.
Fighter jets.
Yeah, everything.
Because they don't want to disrupt their schedule.
Actually, that's
this crap has got to end.
We also see that Michelle Obama and Barack Obama are having a wonderful Valentine's Day. This is really, I guess, we need to call back, Robin Leach to talk about lifestyles of the rich and famous, champagne dreams and caviar wishes, or however that went. They have a very expensive getaway, according to the Daily Mail. The first family's Valentine's Day apart cost the taxpayers at least $2.5 million as Barack golfed in California while Michelle went on a secret ski trip to Aspen.
Right, and what we have is the presidency has become a monarchy in a sense. We give it this idea of royalty instead of being.
And you
the
contrast that
manager
with
he
Harry
should be.
Truman, who, when he retired, went back to the exact same house he owned before he became president in Independence, Missouri, and used to walk down to the corner store to get a newspaper and a cup of coffee in the morning. And most people could drive down that avenue, and they would see him through the front window, sitting in his easy chair reading his paper. Had no pension. Eventually, I don't think it was him. I think it was Eisenhower that solicited Congress on his behalf to get him a pension.
When did pensions come into being for
right
all
around
government,
1956.
for all government employees?
No, for the president. All government employees, I don't know. I'd have to look back.
Senators, congressmen, so forth.
Later.
Yeah.
Most
they've got to collect money and taxes for that.
Yeah, they do.
Well, I get that. But what I'm trying to explain to you now is the difference in mindset. Harry Truman is from the same political party as Barack Obama, but you'd never know it. And Barack Obama would, if they were to go head-to-head today, would call Harry Truman a knee-jerk right-wing conservative, which is asinine. But they are from the same party. And I guarantee you that Harry Truman would look at Barack Obama and be just horrified at what he's done. He'd look at Bill Clinton and be horrified at what these two people have done to the office of the presidency of the United States. You cap on Richard Nixon, and I do a lot. He gave us the EPA, for example, which I don't think should have ever happened because it was given way too much power, and under the wrong hands, this crap just goes awry. It always does. Power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely, as Lord Acton famously opined. We've got to do something about these people, but when you've got, and I know that a lot of people out there are going to take exception with this, but when you've got essentially dogs as the constituency, what are you going to do? All they hear is blah, 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 ginger, blah, 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 ginger. That's an old Far Side reference.
But you can't change it.
Well, you can. It just takes a lot of time.
Because what this really comes down to, and we've hinted at it here and there, is morality of people. And how you going to make their morality.
When morality is based on what? Morals and principles are based on what?
Well, they're supposed to be based upon God, but we've excised God from our national
consciousness.
consciousness.
If you excise God from the national conscious and agenda,
the atheists would call it natural law.
Then you
natural
excise,
law is Islam.
I know.
You excise morality. You might not think you are. You might be, really gung-ho in your beliefs about atheism because you're living in a nice home or you've got a nice job and your life's good. But take you out of the mix and look at the world without God at all, without any semblance of mercy, without any semblance of understanding what's right and doing what's right for the sake of doing what's right.
You get Hillary Clinton. You get Barack Obama. These people...
You get Harry Reid.
You get Harry Reid.
You get...
That Hillary Clinton is even a
John
viable
McCain.
candidate at this point stuns me. Absolutely stuns me. She destroyed her server after it was under subpoena. What do you mean that she's a woman? What the hell does that mean?
It means everything. They want a woman as president, so they're willing to take whatever they can get.
No, they're not. No. They're not willing to take Sarah Palin.
Well, she's too.
They're not willing to take Condoleezza Rice. No, they're not Democrats. And Democrats believe that they are the only home for women and minorities. That's a bunch of BS. Flat out BS, okay? These are pandering pimps is all they are. Put them in or prostitutes. Stick them in a red dress.
You better get off that.
She still wouldn't make any money.
Well, the only thing you have to ask yourself about Hillary Clinton is just what has she done to be president of the United States other than be married to one?
I listened to Sean Hannity ask that question of one of her aides the other day on his show, and he said, just tell me one thing that she's done in her career. Just one thing. That's Secretary of State, Senator, former First Lady, etc.
Well, let's go back to
at Rose Law Firm.
Yeah.
This woman couldn't come up with one thing. All she kept saying is about what she could do. Well, she's an example. Okay, just one thing, one accomplishment. My point is this. Okay, it's not so much. We're talking about the IRS. What sort of an agency it is? It's run by who's ever in power at the time. That needs to end.
So it needs
the
to be
people that we vote into office, we need to be
audit.
more educated. We keep telling people we think it's important to teach children how to put a condom on a banana or a cucumber or what the hell else, but we don't teach them the first basic fundamentals of how our country is put together.
Nor do we teach them morals.
Well, right.
People say that morals are a form of religion, but realistically, why not? Why do you have sex in the 4th grade or the 3rd grade or the 5th grade? Why are you doing that?
In the 4th grade?
Why are you getting
I wouldn't
pregnant?
have a friggin' clue.
So they think if they teach them how to put condoms on bananas, they'll be able to do it with little Johnny down the street. Well, what's little Johnny down the street into her pants for in the first place?
Because it's natural. If you're a dog, you do what a dog does.
It's kind of like a friend of ours we all know went to South America, and he was in this area in Bolivia, supposedly
Say Cochabamba.
pristine area. and he was talking with this tribe, and there was an interpreter. They were trying to make the best of it, and there's a little young kid. Girl runs by in terror, screaming. They're laughing, and here comes two boys, and every person there was under 10, 9. Run her down, 5 feet from them, get her in the bushes, and they start doing it to her. And the parents are laughing.
So they're raping her.
Yeah. And it's kind of like natural and normal because in their minds you get the best of the best. Now she'll have a baby, probably at 10 years old. You know, that's
Well,
just
their
the way
life
it is.
expectancy is what, 38?
Yeah. But we want to protect that and we think it's right. See, because they have no morals down there.
So it was okay for
They have
Muhammad to marry a
morals.
6-year-old.
They have morals based upon their society. And that's where you get the anthropologists and the atheists who are saying that, well, you know, morality is situational, essentially.
Situational ethics.
So as long as it's rooted in any sort of Judeo-Christian...
Situational ethics does not work.
Well, no, I don't think so. But then again, you know, we're not in positions of power.
Only
not in
if
positions
we're the
of authority.
beneficiary of high morality can we sit back in our easy chair and create a debate over this. But when you're living in a country that is where when you walk outside you can be killed or raped, like in some place in Africa.
That happened today here in the United States of America.
Happens all the time.
Look at Chicago.
Then we all cry
Most
for our
strict
rights,
gun
don't we?
rights in the gun restrictions in the country. It has the highest rate of murder. Just asinine. And Rahm Emanuel was just reelected as mayor. These people get what they deserve.
I say
You get the government you deserve, and that's what's happening to us.
Well, this comes from voters that they know more about Honey Boo Boo and keeping up with Kim Kardashian than they have how our government works.
No, none of them know how the government works.
The last poll I saw, they asked students graduating high schools, and can you name the three positions of government, 3 branches? And most of them, at best, was the president, the Senate, the Congress. That was their best. So they got 2 of the branches, but they couldn't name the branches.
Yeah, and I've seen those same sorts of polls at Ivy League universities.
Yes.
The power to vote is very formidable. And we allow it simply because we realize that who we give that power to, if they are uneducated, we can sway them to vote the way we want.
I get it, and that's why Richard Nixon lowered the voting age to 18.
That's wise, because there's a lot of 18-year-olds that at that time in their life, they become aware of their world and their government, but they listen to a lot of stories. They have no hindsight. They haven't lived life very long.
They're empty-headed.
They don't mean to be, but that's just the
part of
nature
growth.
of being that age. And it's okay. But whoever appeals to them the best will get the vote. And so you realize then that voting is a matter of how you perform, how you come across.
Well,
any more voting is how much goodies you're going to get.
What we get into now,
that's part of it.
Yeah,
freedom and gifts.
This is where we're getting into the idea that more voters is good. We had the Rock the Vote come out, where we had people that were uneducated. And when I say uneducated, I mean not knowing how the government works, not understanding how the process
they're uneducated.
You know, they may have gone to college, but they didn't understand what they were voting on. And they vote. More voters isn't good. Educated voters are good. The older I get,
it
the
depends
more
on which party you are. If you're a progressive liberal Democrat,
of course,
more voters is good because you get all the illegals and you get the uneducated. If you are a conservative, then you want educated voters, and more voters is bad because they're not going to vote for you.
The older I get, the more I understand that the original founding fathers had property owners as the only people that could vote for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They were the only
they had
people,
skin in the game.
Yeah, they were the only people that were putting meat into the pie that was going to be divided up.
Here's another problem in which we have two. We have Democrat and Republican, and there's always independents. And supposedly Democrats stick together as do Republicans, and they have their own way of doing things. But it's kind of funny because if you come through the public school system, and for years you are indoctrinated with a mantra that says there is no God, but you are a result of evolution. If you are if they've done their job, they have indoctrinated you. Of course, people slip off and go to Christian camps, and they have parents that read the Bible, and there's no way they can control everyone. But when you come out of that system, and you're devoid of a knowledge of God completely and entirely, and you believe very firmly that you are a product of evolution, you only have one go-round in life. Morality then becomes a tool.
Well, I don't
understand?
know where morality would fall there. You'd fall into survival of self.
Yeah.
Right.
Preservation of self.
So if you
becomes
realize
your
you only
morality
have
base.
one go-round in life,
So morality actually doesn't even become an issue for most of
it's
them.
a tool to be used,
Well,
but it's not something that they can grasp or hold on to or understand. The idea of giving up what you have so another person can have an equal amount or greater or life.
There
There is no such thing as evil.
Here is
No.
the anticipation.
Well, there is, but they don't understand it directly.
Here's the whole thing in a nutshell when we're talking about politics. Those of you that haven't watched the Netflix series called House of Cards, it details a congressman's rise to power and up to president, and his name is Frank Underwood. And the man wheels and deals. He destroys lives. He's killed people, all to gain power. Bill Clinton, our president, is a fan of the show and said that the show is 99% accurate. The 1% it's not accurate is in how fast he can get congressional bills passed in a voting year. Outside of that, it's accurate. And that alone should scare the hell out of every person in the United States.
Why? They don't understand politics.
I guess that's the problem.
Well,
In the end, is they just want what they can get out of it.
that is all the Democratic Party has become anymore. And Rhino Republicans are following
Oh, they're-
lockstep
they're
in
in
the
this-
same
they're no
direction.
different.
Because both parties are essentially globalists, and they no longer have any allegiance to the sovereignty of this country. So you were talking earlier about the IRS as an entity is essentially benign. They're just doing their job. But I contend the people within it set the tone
There are leaders within
for
it, definitely.
how the IRS is perceived. Here's just one little thing. It's just a quick article, and I'm not only going to read a first couple of paragraphs. When Carol Hinders answered a knock at the front door of her home in August 2013, she was confronted by two IRS agents. They told her that they had just cleaned out her entire bank account of the restaurant Mrs. Lady's Mexican Foods that Hinders had owned and operated in the tiny Spirit Lake, Iowa town for the past 30 years. The IRS seized more than $32,000 from Mrs. Hinders' account. While Hinders stood in shock, the IRS agents told her that her cash deposits looked suspicious. Based upon that suspicion alone, the IRS had the authority to seize her entire bank account using a federal legal procedure known as civil forfeiture. A lot of law enforcement agencies use the same thing. They'll take cars and houses and all sorts of property prior to there being any conviction, and good luck getting any of it back. Hinders protested that she'd get a lawyer and fight the seizure. She still remembers the disdainful response from one of the agents who said, "Well, you can sure try."
That's because you can't sue the IRS and win.
There's always going to be isolated incidences that scare
I
us.
don't believe they're isolated. Here's another article in response to the growing isolated incidents of abuse of power of the IRS itself. Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, same state as the Hinders, ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, today made the following comment on a New York Times story describing IRS use of asset civil forfeiture laws to seize the assets of small business owners without suspicion of a crime, merely on what they regard as suspicion, and they're not answerable to anybody. A senior member and former chairman of the ranking member of the Finance Committee with jurisdiction over the IRS, Grassley is a longtime proponent of IRS improvements, having served on the National Commission on Restructuring the IRS and co-authoring the first ever taxpayer Bill of Rights and its sequel. So Grassley's been in the Senate for many years. He's, in my opinion, one of the better senators we've got. He's a Republican. because no Democratic senator would ever take a stand like that. Democratic senators understand very clearly, or Democratic politicians very clearly understand that were it not for their political career, they would be homeless people.
That's racist!
And I honestly believe that. I believe these are people who are, even within the ranks of politicians, are about the most useless things that we've got.
Well,
that's harsh, I know.
Yeah.
But I've yet to see a Democratic politician, especially in recent times, do anything good for anyone.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan.
I have dealt with the IRS for years, and I found them to be kind and humane and helpful. Everybody keeps feeding me this information.
My personal experience with the IRS was somewhat different. Had I assets for them to seize at the time, they would have seized them. Basically, I was stone cold broke, and I said, have fun with that. You'll have to send me to debtor's prison. Well, we don't really do that anymore. Your loss, buddy.
I listen. I see what's in the paper. I listen to sound bites at times, but all I can go from is my experience in life and what I've seen and the people around me. And I love history, and I love reading about Rome, and I love reading about different countries, how they formed. And I see how they collected taxes.
But they're not comparable to the United States.
Wait, Rome was
Find
together
me a country comparable to the United States.
for nearly 500 years, right? Rome altogether?
Longer than
No, because you had the Republic, then you had the Empire.
Right, depending on which
The
Rome
Republic,
you're referring to.
how many years
Republic was about 200 and some odd years before the Empire.
And how long?
So you had about
did it
600 some odd,
I
some
thought it was
change.
around- okay, but so it's over 500 years. They were the most
I
powerful
think it was actually just under 700.
government on earth, and
But it was a wholly it was a dictatorship.
they were sophisticated for their time. They were efficient for their time. That's why they lasted so long.
By the time of the Empire, though, Mark, the Senate was little more than toadies.
Right, but they collected taxes in a totally different way.
I understand all of that.
They were heavy-handed.
I get it. And they also had lunatics in. I mean, how many times did their treasuries get looted by whatever lunatic emperor they had in place at the time?
You know, Nero wanted to fill in this particular area, circus area, to have a sea battle, and so they exhausted the treasury, and then also put a tax on the people throughout the Roman Empire on top of the normal tax, and they sent thugs around to collect it.
Sure.
And you were beaten.
I get it.
They'd walk right in your house
I
and take what
understand
they
that.
wanted.
And that's why when the United States of America was founded, we sought to not do the same things that these other countries had done.
So I'm thankful to live here.
And so I'm not saying I'm not thankful to live here, but, damn it, when I see abuses by small people, they need to be called out. And let's not put a happy spin on it. When you're driving manufacturing overseas because of confiscatory taxes, when people are losing their homes, not able to buy homes, can't get work because there's no work to be had anymore, because businesses fleeing this land of milk and honey.
We should not have any manufacturing in China. Zero.
No, we shouldn't, but when you've got politicians and unions who work hand in hand to rape business owners, demonizing them because, well, they've got a business. Well, screw you. Any Hollywood star, fill in the blank, who earns millions of dollars for reading lines that someone else wrote, can get a pass. Tom Cruise worth that much money? Well, he is to the businesses that hire him. And that's what it comes down to. But because he's a progressive liberal, no one will touch him.
But again, the IRS is one thing, and they're doing their job. What I don't like is our manufacturing going out of the United States into other countries, and we're losing billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of dollars.
The only thing that's going to change that is if more people who hold conservative points of view and ideologies are incensed enough to start going to the polls and voting for people.
No business should go into a different country like China, especially as a communist country, and take advantage of their systems in order to make a profit at the expense of their own people.
Okay, they were going to do it because business is business.
That's the problem.
No, Mark, that's the solution. Business is business. So you want to bring business back here, you start lowering the tax rate. Stop killing them so that they'd rather stay home. You think people like to commute? No. But that's what's given us this globalist mindset. The globalists need to be reined in, and the Bushes, the Clintons, the Obamas need to be told, no, you're American or get the hell out. I don't care if you're a president.
Any corporation is in China manufacturing is because of the hard work done by the people that lived before them. The telecommunication systems put into being, the transportation systems put into being.
I get all of that.
Okay, all of that they're making use of.
They're making use
trying
of it.
to make more money at more dollars in percentages in a different country.
Yes.
And depleting our nation as they're doing it.
Because their stockholders want to see a certain bottom line.
It's wrong.
Well, it may be wrong, but if you want to bring all this stuff back, get rid of the damn confiscatory tax rates. Okay?
You've got
more
to
manufacturing,
make them come back.
more business, more people at work, more taxes will be collected. It will balance itself out in the end in our favor.
That's just wrong.
No, it's not wrong. That's the way it should be working.
No,
that's the way it used to work.
It's morally wrong to take our business into other countries.
It is not morally wrong for a person who has a business to try to make the business survive. Okay? And if I can make more money going over there than staying at home...
If you live in the United States, you should manufacture.
No, then
in
you're you're telling a business owner that because of the politicians and their greed, that they've got to pay the price for it.
They find a way.
The way is
it's partly
the way is people need to become engaged. You yourself said you've never voted, okay? So you need to vote. You need to vote for people who are not going to dismantle this country and parcel it out like Michael Lynch did to the Alcoa Reynolds aluminum plant.
It's very difficult to find someone to vote for. It's definitely...
Well, look, you're not going to find someone that you agree with on every single issue. That's granted.
You're choosing one evil over the other. What's the lesser evil?
During World War II...
the lesser evil is the one that you agree with most versus not voting at all and picking the major evil.
During World War II, when we responded and got involved, we went to work manufacturing. We were the manufacturing giant of the world. Literally.
That's the only reason we won World War II.
And we won it because at a very rapid pace, we manufactured munitions, ships, tanks.
What didn't we do?
Let's look at the facts.
What didn't we do?
Germany had better tanks, better aircraft, better ships than what we had. The simple fact was, if they shot down one of our fighter planes, we put 10 back up. They just simply could not keep up with these numbers.
Today, we can't do that.
We made a lot of concessions then that would not even be dreamt of being done today. Okay, there were no the unions did not have the voice in those shipyards that they would have today.
They would just shut the shipyard down. Look here, Portland, at the Longshoremen Union, shutting down the port, saying we're not going to load. So the largest shipping containing company in the world that's based there said, you know what, guys? Screw you. We're leaving this port.
And they did.
And a lot of jobs are lost because of it.
And a lot of jobs will be lost, but the union survived their little proxy or their little battle. My point is this: we've got.
Well, they'll lose in the long run.
In the long run, but they don't care. They'll cash out before then.
They're chopping their nose off to spite their face.
If you had a lifespan of 300 years,
you know what else
these politicians would be running the country the way they're running it now.
You know what else will happen? That same group that left this port, now they're going to Seattle. A lot of these longshoremen will transfer their union membership to Seattle or Tacoma.
But as far as businesses exporting their work overseas, that's on us. You want to bring them back, lure them back. Do what is necessary for the health of this country, for the good of the citizens who stay behind, and that is get rid of these damn confiscatory rates, okay?
Don't punish
these greedy, useless, small little politicians who, if they didn't have that job, I maintain, would be homeless people. Because there's nothing else they can do. They have no talent. They have no skills. They don't know how to live a life.
I mean, Nancy and Boner would
absolutely be out on their ass.
Broke, but Nancy's going to be retiring at over $1 billion
Nancy Pelosi was able to do what she was able to do because her husband was wealthy. And she was a stay-at-home mom who, by her own admission, just got bored staying at home and wanted to get involved.
Right. And rallied that into helping her husband make billions of dollars.
Same thing with Dianne Feinstein, whose husband is a real estate magnate, who's decimating, incidentally, the postal system because he's going around buying up all the old post office lands.
She closes them down and he buys them.
Pennies on the dollar.
Imagine that.
Yeah, exactly. His wife closes them and he buys them up on pennies on the dollar. That's a great system we've got there. Progressive liberal Democrat from San Francisco was Johnny on the spot. George Mosconi's body wasn't even cold before she jumped into his mayoral seat. So I suppose we've ranted enough. So we'll wrap up this, and just as a parting thought, remember all of this when you're writing that check out to the IRS. That the money will go to expensive vacations, caviar, jet planes, 6, 7, 8, 9-star hotels that you'll never see. You'll never see. Hobnobbing with stars and heads of state, you're paying for all of that, every bit of it. So go ahead and continue to vote for these politicians. Go ahead and allow them to continue to hire Rocco, the thumb breaker, when you don't pay up. And maybe it'll be you the next time that gets that knock on your door, and you're having to find out that your bank account has been seized, your house has got a lien on it, your cars are been repoed, even though they're paid off, etc. All of this will happen if you don't get involved, don't become engaged, don't start hiring people to manage the affairs of this country that actually are interested in managing the affairs of this country. Do that, and you will see manufacturing return. You'll see jobs return. It happened in the 1980s, and it can happen again, but we've got to wake up, folks, period. We've got to stop hiring the cool guy and start hiring the competent guy. And that concludes my rant anyway. So, for
David Cameron,
Mark Wilson,
and Lou Rogers,
I am Chase Rockwell saying so long until the next time you find yourself across the cosmos.
Send any questions or comments to us via email at info@acrossthecosmos.com. Also, visit us on the web at www.acrossthecosmos.com for show updates, news, and other important information. No part of this podcast may be used without the express written permission from the staff of Across the Cosmos. Across the Cosmos is a production of